Do. Well. Hello, fraud and audit friends and family. Okay, look, think about this. When is the last time you went to a bank drive-through? When's the last time you went to a bank, period? But think about this. You're sitting in your car, you put your ID and your check or whatever it is in that little plastic tube, it whisks it away. And then after a few minutes, you get your cash or whatever it is that you went to the bank for. That's like the ultimate mundane chore. But it is built on the idea that the person on the other side of the camera is the guardian of the vault. But what happens when that teller is not just checking your balance? What if they're doing something else? If you've ever been to a bank recently, if you've been to a drive-through recently, let me know in the chat because this is one you might want to hold on for because, well, I say this every week, but this is crazy. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Friday Fraudster Podcast. Join them as they discuss sad, funny, and sometimes disturbing fraud stories. Be sure to catch past episodes on your favorite podcasting platform or go to www.fridayfraudster.com.
All right, guys, you heard the question that I asked earlier. When is the last time you've been to a bank, first of all? And then when's the last time you've been to a drive-through in a bank? I'm just curious to know. And before I get too far down the rabbit hole, there's Thomas. And this week, Christine, she didn't want to be here. She got tired of Thomas and I. I mean, who can blame her, right?
Yeah, I get tired of us too.
Yeah, me too. So now we've got another special guest. And before I bring her up, I'm going to tell you, I got to say thanks to Bob. Bob Wessler sent this story for this week. We got to get Bob back on too. So if you guys ever want to see us talk about a story, you can just send it to me. I might get to it one day. So today we've got Stephanie. I don't have my soundboard, so I can't do any clapping, doggone it. That's just messed up.
Don't worry, everybody else is cheering that we have somebody besides just us on here.
Oh, wait.
There we go.
So, let me ask you all, when's the last time you've been to a bank branch?
Other than the ATM, I couldn't tell you. Probably when I started my company 8 years ago.
Okay, fair enough. What about a drive-through? You haven't been to a drive-through recently?
No?
Yeah.
How about you, Rob?
I don't know. I was trying to think of when is the last time I've actually been to a bank. I've walked by one. I've looked inside one. Now,
I usually go when I need.
Yeah.
I usually go when I need cash for like a garage sale or something, like change.
Okay. You go when there's a garage sale or something. Bob said, "Oh my God, Stephanie is in Christine's house."
I broke in.
Bob, when is the last time you've been to a bank branch? I'm just really curious. Like, does anyone go to one? Okay, full disclosure, and I think I've said this on the show before. When I was in college, I'm not going to say what year that was. I was a teller. I was a bank teller, and it was a pretty good deal. I got to meet a lot of really good customers, a lot of business owners. They put a lot of trust in us. I love the branch that I work for. I mean, I had the greatest time. It's one of the best experiences I've had working. Now, Stephanie, you worked in a branch, didn't you?
Yep, for 4 years.
Wasn't it great?
I enjoyed it, but I worked for a really good credit union, Washington State. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. The one thing is, there's a lot of trust placed on us because we have the power to do a lot, and by do I don't necessarily mean directly do. We have the power to initiate opening accounts, closing accounts, transferring money, cashing checks, and there should be like multiple layers of authority in there. Now when I worked in the bank branch, they would always put me on the drive through because I worked at a really, really busy branch. This was before, a lot of people got direct deposit. You still had checks back in the day when I was a teller. And so most Thursday and Friday and Saturdays, it was real busy. People coming in to make deposits or, cash checks. And so I would be in the drive through and it was real busy because you had this constant activity going on. And so making sure that everything balanced at the end of the day was kind of hard, you know?
And most of it's computerized now.
Yeah, most of it's computerized now. Wait a minute now. Who is this saying good morning, happy Saturday here?
It's
You
like
know what?
it's Letitia.
All I, who?
Letitia.
Oh, okay. All it says on the screen is LinkedIn user, so I have to cheat to see if I know who
I
this
was
is.
going to say who is at least 10 hours ahead of us.
Yeah.
That's a good jump.
Oh, Latif, she's in Australia. Yeah. Okay. And then Carol is here too. She was the other LinkedIn user. Okay, so now working in the branches, it's very, very stressful. You have a lot of people coming in and out, but there's a lot of trust that is placed upon you as a teller and just as a branch worker in general. I've got a buddy who was working in a branch up until a couple of months ago, and he was telling me that nowadays you have the crazy people that come in and sometimes he has to call the police. And on one occasion he thought he was going to have to get physical with someone who tried to cash a fraudulent check.
I've been there when that's happened. Money's an emotional thing, but when you've got those scammers, fraudsters, especially through COVID, people they would pay homeless people to try to open accounts and deposit fake checks and take out a little bit at the ATM. Happened every day.
Yeah. Okay. So hmm so would you be surprised if I told you that there was a bank teller who was printing out debit cards for the cartel down in Colombia?
That would be a little surprising, I have to say. That's a pretty good. I mean, if you said it was next door in Florida or something like that, I could believe it. But if you said cartels down in Colombia, that takes a little bit of a leap. But I guess nothing surprises us much anymore.
He was in Florida, I think.
Was he?
There's always a Florida man.
Of course.
It's
Already
always a
out
Florida man.
Yeah.
Okay, so listen now. He was 25 years old and he worked at TD Bank in Doral or Doral, depending on where you're from, Florida. So while most tellers are worried about a $10 drawer shortage, he was allegedly tapped in with the money laundering network. And he was essentially turning his branch into a high-speed exit ramp for drug money. So let me just tell you what happened. The FBI recently unsealed the details. This was on January 30th of this year. And this wasn't a one time. He would charge $700 to open up a fraudulent account, business account, $150 for a personal account, and then $50 for every debit card that he ordered for the criminals. Now, I'm thinking that his rates are very reasonable for fraud, right?
I mean, it's a lot of money when you're talking about his minimum wage pay that he was getting.
Oh,
The teller.
Yeah.
Usually those are starting roles.
Yeah. So I guess in comparison to his salary, maybe that was a fair amount of money. But here's the thing: he didn't just open up one account. He was working with another teller in New Jersey. And so what the teller in New Jersey would do is he would open up a shell company in New Jersey, and then he would use stolen identities. One of them was a 77-year-old Colombian woman. And then down in Florida, the teller down there would access the New Jersey account and print the cards. So let me just recap now. You got a teller in Florida, a teller in New Jersey. The New Jersey teller would open up a business account. The Florida teller would initiate the debit card for the business accounts in New Jersey.
There are so many red flags that you would think a bank system would pick up on just with that right there.
Right?
I mean,
Guessing the new
if I just use my personal debit card in certain parts of Houston, which I live in Houston, the bank will still flag it as, is this really you? Because of just the parts of town that it's in. And the fact that, these are being issued in other states, across the country, that's sad.
Wait. But here's the big thing. Since when has a teller ever been able to turn on a debit card? Could you do that when you were in the branch, Stephanie? I couldn't.
Well, I wasn't a teller, but the tellers could issue.
Really?
They could issue debit cards.
All right. I guess things have progressed since, I worked in the bank in the Stone Age, so things have progressed, right?
Well, Rob, I do remember, like, for a long time, I'd go up to the bank to do, whatever, and the teller could do almost nothing. They could take your money, they could give you some cash sometimes, and that was about it. But the last few years that I've been there for business purposes, all of a sudden they do have a little more authority and a little bit more that they can do. So it's kind of that balance, I guess. But you definitely don't want to give them too much leeway, I guess.
Okay, now let's take this one step further. In one instance, while he was working in his drive-through window, he actually issued 25 debit cards for a New Jersey account. And now he didn't hand them to the customer. He just clicked on the mail to customer button and then, sent them to a fake address in New Jersey. And then from there, the cards were actually flown to Colombia. And in one instance, one criminal had about 150 cards down in Colombia.
How do you manage that many cards? Like, and I know you're not really big as I don't want to bounce a check type of thing, but like, I don't know.
They're working in volume. So they
so.
figure something will be turned off, and they work in volume, moving smaller amounts, trying to get under the alerts thresholds.
You go up to a cash register and maybe the person in front of you, they swipe a card, it was declined, so they grab another one and swipe. Could you imagine being behind someone? They're like, okay, try this one, try this one, try this one. Rob, you keep freezing, and that's just a great view that you've frozen on right now.
That's a great look. Is it Talk Like a Pirate Day? Oh, he's back.
Oh, he's back? No,
Maybe.
He's not back.
Nope.
Is he back?
I'm back. I just let you guys talk because I could see I was getting unstable with my internet connection. So I had to fix it real quick. You know what? Here's the question that I'm wondering though. Okay. Now I'm sure everybody will be able to relate to this. With that many debit cards, how in the world do you remember the PIN numbers to all of them?
They probably just set them all to the same pin, I would think.
0000.
No, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Okay, but now I know that sounds like a lot of debit cards, but there was a method to the madness because the question you would ask is why not just one debit card? And the answer to that is quite simple. You had daily withdrawal limits. If you had one card, you could only pull out maybe $1,000 a day. But with 150 different cards, you could pull out a lot of money. And for example, they used those cards to perform over 12,000 ATM withdrawals in Colombia. They moved about $5.5 million in just a few months.
So that was when you say the few months. Now my math is probably wrong on this, but I calculated it was only about a 6-month scheme. So 12,000 ATM withdrawals in 6 months. You're talking about 2,000 a month. Who's got the time for that? And I know that they're basically maxing out every time, but good night. That's a whole lot of effort for 6 months.
They got people for that.
Yeah. Well, here's where it gets even more interesting, though. Wouldn't the bank system catch those transactions? Because number one, the company was in New Jersey. Number two, the transactions were happening in Colombia. And then number three, there was a heavy volume of transactions. So wouldn't the company system actually flag that?
They should.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've been
should.
over my career, I've traveled to several countries that are not not exactly low on the Transparency International list for fraud. So, and anytime I went to those, you use a card one time and it's getting flagged immediately. And I use Chase Bank, and Chase has done a great job improving their notification system, where if it gets that notification, it immediately texts me and emails me, "Hey, is this you?" So that way it also unfreezes it very quickly, right? But yeah, you would think Colombia would be on, high on that list of questionable spots, even if you do routine, business down there. I would want them to flag any kind of transactions like that. So I'm shocked that this bank didn't do that.
Maybe
All
it was
right.
just small amounts. I'm not sure.
No.
So Stephanie, have you ever had your account flagged and frozen because of a transaction that actually was legitimate, though?
Yes.
So what happened? How does the bank resolve those instances?
It depends on the bank. Sometimes, like Thomas said, they send you a text and you're like, "Yep, that was me." Sometimes they have you call in and verify that it was you. It really depends. Sometimes you have to go in if it's really, triggering. I had my card number stolen in Vegas, and all of a sudden they called me and they're like, "Are you getting teriyaki in Canada?" I'm like, "No."
Oh, so let me tell you about the time I had it wasn't a debit card, though, it was a credit card. It was stolen. So I was over in Madrid, I was over in Spain, and I'm having a good time, and I know exactly where it got stolen. I know exactly what happened. I should never. Here's a tip: if you ever travel overseas, just take in the scenery there. Don't ever do anything that's quote unquote American. I went to a Hard Rock Cafe in Madrid. Why, I don't know. I was just missing home. So I get home and I get a call from my bank saying, "Mr. Perry, are you still in Spain?" And I'm like, "Well, no. I mean, I purchased my itinerary on your card too, so you know that I'm no longer in Spain." And so they said, "Well, did you happen to buy?" And they started listing off stuff, and it was a bunch of women's clothing. And I was like, no, I'm like, I
don't
have
want to
no,
know.
right. I have no need for 6-inch heels. That's just, right. So they called me after I got back. So they called about a week and a half too late. But what ended up happening is they were able to say I wasn't there. And so they immediately took the charges off. But I think the mechanisms for detecting fraud have gotten better over the years. Here's what's interesting in this case, though. They actually did catch the fraud. They flagged it as suspicious activity and they locked the cards. Unfortunately, our guy in Florida, he unlocked the cards. Now look, okay, let me just be frank here. And hopefully no tellers will be offended with what I'm about to say because I was once a teller and I'm not trying to offend anyone. But was this like a super teller or something? He had a lot of authority. This doesn't make any sense for one person in a bank branch to have this much authority.
Right? Usually it's the supervisors, someone else that has to do the fraud unlocks. Sometimes it's the fraud department specifically that's only allowed to do it. It really depends on the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of the situation, I would consider 12,000 transactions coming out of Colombia to be a dire situation where it would take a fraud department to unlock it, not a teller sitting at the drive through in Florida for an account based out of New Jersey.
So it sounds like the bank systems were at least partially working because they were flagging it and freezing those cards. It's just that the teller was going in there and turning them back on.
And that's where I was going with it. Right? That whole thing just seems really, really crazy. So he would just log in and unblock it. Now, here's the thing. This case is a part of the reason why TD Bank, which is where this happened, was hit with a $3 billion with a B dollar penalty last year. It appears as though the controls weren't just broken. It seems like the controls were ignored by the culture within the organization. Let me just run through this. Control failure, right? So number one, you had regional silos. Why was a teller in Florida allowed to issue 25 cards for a New Jersey small business account without in some sort of an out of region alert or something like that? Now let's talk about the overrides. This man had the power to unblock cards that the fraud department had flagged. So you as a teller have more authority than the fraud department. And then what happened to the second level of approval after that fraud happened? So,
Oh,
Sec-
checks and balances. I don't see it there.
yeah. Second level of approval for turning them back, turning the cards back on. But then also, why were there no flags in the system of, hey, he's done more than two today? He's done more than three today. Just some kind of a red flag of, hey, he's done this multiple times, because it had to be numerous every single day for them to keep those on.
right.
Maybe there is a some sort of back end system, but maybe someone wasn't looking at it or no idea.
All right. Now, what else did you guys notice very interesting and strange about this case? I'm holding on to something right now because I want to see if one of you guys saw it.
Now I'm stressing and worried about what did I miss?
Was it the amount he made?
Ooh, that was one thing. Tell him about the amount he made per transaction.
Before you do, let's give the comments a chance here. So they funneled about $5.5 million out of the United States over about a 6-month time, 150 debit cards to different shell companies, all of that stuff that you've heard so far. How much money do you think they were bribing this teller to be able to help commit this fraud? Let's see if we have any guesses there.
Ooh, okay, yeah, that's
it would
good.
have to be a lot.
We'll let Bob, Kimberly, Letitia, Carol try to guess how much was he getting as a bribe in order to commit this fraud. And while they are guessing and thinking about that, here's something else that I noticed. So he would regularly be texting while he was at work about the shenanigans that were going on. And he would oftentimes mention the cartel in his text messages. As a matter of fact, in one particular instance, he texted an acquaintance asking for a favor because he said, "Hey, look, my boys are telling me it won't let him send money through Zelle." So they sent a lot of money through Zelle. And in one particular instance, when they asked him about a Zelle transaction and what it was for when they were interviewing him, he gave what we would call the nightclub excuse. Here's what he said. He claimed that he and one of the co-conspirators were just clubbing buddies. He told agents that since his friend was underage and couldn't get into the clubs or buy drinks, that he would pay the tab for him, and that one $900 Zelle payment was just reimbursement for bottle service at the club.
So he's giving liquor to minors, and he's straight up admitting it.
But you know what? Here's the thing. If he admit to a smaller crime, then the police won't look at the big crime. That's what it was. Sorry, I couldn't even say that with a straight face. And Quentin is here, but man, how you doing, Quentin? Okay, Matthew said 25,000. Look, wouldn't it need to be a significant amount in order for you to commit a crime like that? Wait till you find out the number. Just wait. Letitia's saying might be a big amount of money. Ooh, boy, you guys are going to be surprised when you find out how much money he was selling his soul for. All right. You ready to reveal the number? That's my only drum roll I got today.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
$6,000 total.
If I could pay somebody $6,000 to make me $5.5 million, I would pay it.
It's a great return on your investment.
Oh, that is 100% a great return on the investment. Oh, there we go. $200 a card. There we go. Carol has done. Carol did the math. Oh.
And for that, grand prize is up
amazing.
to 30 years in jail.
Yeah. So okay, so listen. At one point, he told the feds, he said, "Officer, I'm not a launderer. I'm just a really generous wingman for an underage kid who loves the VIP section." No, I'm just kidding. He didn't really say that.
I was gonna say. It's like, where'd that quote go?
He's 25. It wouldn't surprise me if he actually said something like that.
Nah, I'm joking. He didn't really say that, unless he really did. Because I have that written in my notes, and I don't know if that was just for me as I was kind of being snarky when I was writing, or if it actually said that. But I don't think it actually said that. I think I just wrote that as a snarky note to myself. Oh my goodness. Oh. But that's crazy, isn't it?
Okay, seriously, if you're going to commit a fraud, make it worth it. I mean, come on now. I think they were actually paying something like $50 for like per account or something like that. I think I saw. Come on. I mean, now I worked in retail ages ago, and there were people that were fired for stealing candy bars and sodas and stuff like that. So I mean, I know the small stuff, and I guess you think maybe if it's so small you can get away with it, but I don't. This sounds terrible, but go big or go home.
Okay, so remember I said he used a shell company that was in New Jersey. Check this out. That shell company, they used the identification of a 77-year-old grandmother from Colombia. So think about this. You're sitting here in Florida. You open up a bank account for a business in New Jersey. The business is owned by a 77-year-old grandmother from Colombia. And get this, the nature of the business was import-export. The Colombian drug smuggling jokes just write themselves here, right?
You can't make it up.
I'm in the import-export business, and I'm from Colombia. Wink, wink.
Yeah, I got nothing to say on that one.
Oh boy. Um, I'm trying to think what else now have I not covered on this one. Let's see. We talked about the $120,000 ATM withdrawals in Colombia. We talked about moving $5.5 million, but only personally getting $6,000. We talked about the 25 cards issued in under 60 minutes while he was actually sitting in his drive-through window, supposedly working. I guess the drive-through wasn't that busy that day, huh?
Slow day.
It had to be a slow day, like real slow. Oh,
I mean, I don't know how many times I've gone up to the bank and there's nobody in the drive-through. You know, yeah, you'll have some people inside, you know, a lot of times for business reasons, but yeah, I was gonna say, my local bank, the Chase Bank here, they've closed at least 2 branches in my area over the last couple of years. People just don't go do the physical banking much anymore.
yeah, yeah. Well, okay. Here's where this case gets even worse, though. Yeah, here's where it gets even worse. Um, at this point, the speculation is that they were truly using these accounts for money laundering, and so here's what they're thinking. They're thinking that cash from drug sales in the US were put into the New Jersey accounts. And so he had the 25 debit cards that were down in Colombia. And so the people were withdrawing the cash in Colombia and then making the money clean and ready to spend in the local economy down there.
Rob, my audio chopped up on that one. Can you say that line one more time?
Okay. Sorry.
Sorry.
So it is thought that they were using the cash from drug sales in the US, depositing them into the accounts at the New Jersey bank account. And then the individuals were cleaning that money and by taking it out of ATMs in Colombia, thus moving the money from the US to Colombia.
So I wonder how they found the guy down in Florida. You know, I mean, it seems like their main operations were up in the New Jersey area. So why or how did they get this guy in Florida to do this? I wonder.
Maybe
Ooh.
Craigslist. He answered an ad.
Okay. So one way they found him, so there were a few things that happened. I'm going to walk through those. One thing was he made a mistake with his company email. While at his desk, he received an email from the criminals with a list of 25 names and birthdays, and he received it on his official company email. So think about that. He's working at a bank, and then all of a sudden you get a list of 25 names and birthdays, and you're a teller. He received that information so that he could open up more accounts, right? So that's one thing. Here's another thing. So the FBI was able to cross-reference his computer activity with the bank's security footage. And so they were able to look at him at the drive-through once they kind of nailed down a suspect, right? As a matter of fact, in the Department of Justice filing, it actually mentions a specific moment. On June the 14th at 4:04 p.m., they have a screenshot of him in the Doral branch, and it shows him at the drive-through window. And at that exact second, the logs also show him accessing the New Jersey Shell Company account for the first time. And so he was caught on camera. And that's what we said earlier, right? How is it that you can actually execute these transactions in Florida for an account that's in New Jersey? That doesn't make sense. Now, another thing that happened, and I touched on this earlier, that Zelle account. He forgot how Zelle works. At one point, he convinced an unwitting associate who was a friend but didn't know what was happening to receive a $900 Zelle payment from him. Um, he he thought that using the friend's Zelle account would make the money untraceable, but the feds just kind of followed the hop. They saw that the cartel paid the friend, and then the friend ended up paying him the money. So Zelle was another way that it happened. Then one other thing that happened was when they were interviewing him. This was kind of the nail in the coffin. So they interviewed him November 20th of 2023. They walked into the bank to have a chat with him. And so they asked him about his friend, and he lied and said the guy was just a customer he might have helped. But then the feds showed him the Zelle records. If this was a guy you might have helped, how do you have Zelle transactions with him? And that's how the whole nightclub wingman story came up. So his lie unraveled. So those are four things that happened that kind of led them to the trail. There were some other things too. So, for example, the bank eventually realized that the teller in Florida was constantly touching the account that was in New Jersey based on the IP address. And then the other thing was the velocity of the alerts. So alerts just kept popping up.
Yep, they have their systems have back end audit logs to know what employee is touching what.
Sure, sure. Here's the thing though. Here's what really just got me on this one. Shouldn't there be an exception report anytime there is a debit card that is cut off and then it's automatically cut back on very quickly, especially without some sort of correspondence from a customer? There's no way to get your card cut back on. The customer has to do something. Either you get a text message or you have to call into the call center. And there should be evidence of a call coming in from a customer in order to reactivate your debit card. So, like, what happened to the log,
Yeah, this feels like obviously, yeah, I think I'm saying the obvious here, but this is a great example of why you don't want only detective controls, because that's what they've done here. They have nothing preventing anything. It feels like, okay, yes, they'll flag a card for fraud, potential fraud, so they'll freeze it. But if it's that easy to turn back on, that's a useless control. So they have a lot of detective after the fact. If people look into those reports and actually review them, but there's nothing preventing anything from happening here.
Yeah, Bob is saying it. We just talked about this. Bob says they were TD accounts and TD just got their hands slapped for compliance issues. Now, here's the bigger thing though. Oftentimes, most bank systems are already set up where these controls are in place. You just have to turn them on.
Yeah.
God, I don't understand this. Again, when I was a teller, there was only so much that I could do. I mean, partially because, well, I mean, I'm me and I might mess something up at any point in time, right? But our span of control was limited, and we would always have to go to the head teller for certain things, certain transactions over certain dollar amounts, certain types of transactions, things like that. I never had the ability to turn on a debit card, and I know Stephanie said that's kind of normal now, but then on the back end, anytime something looked like an error, you would have a report. We would always get a call from corporate, from the proof department. Hey, this happened. And I'm like, oh God, what happened now? So what happened? But yeah, I think you're right, Thomas. The detective controls are kind of bad. A second level review there would have helped out. A second level of approval. Just something. I mean, but just all the way around. A teller in Florida opens up accounts in New Jersey, issues 150 or no, was it 25 or 150 debit cards? It's 25 debit cards and something like 150 transactions that occurred in a very short period of time. Money moving through Zelle, emails where he's talking about the cartel, laughing. I might be, chased by the cartel. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, it was 150 debit cards, 12,000 ATM withdrawals.
Yeah. And likely those emails coming in with the names and birthdays, there were probably socials on there too. I know with the bank that I work for, in the email, it flags it if you've got personally identifying information like a social in an email. And it sounds like that's may have been one of the reasons he got caught, because something got flagged with that email.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about the charges. Let's wrap this up. Um, he pleaded guilty on January the 30th in a Newark federal court. Conspiracy to launder monetary instruments. Now, the maximum penalty there is 20 years in prison and a fine of $500,000 or twice the value of the funds laundered. So, in this case, that would be roughly about $11 million. Um, so, the next one is receipt of bribes by a bank employee. That one has a maximum penalty of 30 years in prison and a fine of $1 million or three times the bribe amount. And so this one is a kind of a special charge, right? Because banks are FDIC insured. So taking a bribe to look the other way is kind of considered an attack on the government itself. So, whew. So, okay. So if you're doing the math here, this young man is 25 years old, and if a judge gives him the maximum sentence on both counts, he could be 75 years old before he tastes freedom again. So 50 years for $6,000. Now that's what he got, right? With $6,000.
$6,000 in 6 months, and he's
Yeah.
facing all of this prison time.
Insane, right?
Insane, stupid.
I'm guessing he'll get a
But
fairly low sentence just because they might consider the amount that he got, but it really depends. I mean, you're talking about the potential of you're aiding and abetting terrorist organizations, or drug trafficking, human trafficking, and you don't know what they're doing on the back end. Cartel kind of does a little bit of everything.
but if he pled guilty, I wonder if he also, as part of that plea deal, was giving away information about that he did have on those cartels.
That's my guess, is he made
Yeah.
a deal.
Yeah. Cut a deal, you plead guilty, give up all of the information you have on all of that. Also, if I was the defense attorney, I'd be pointing it back also at TD Bank and say, look at all of the stuff that they've done wrong. And, and putting not all the blame, obviously, he chose to do this, but trying to show that, the bank was at fault a little bit with this as well, to try to get the prison time down. But still, either way, even just 6 months in prison is not worth $6,000 in bribes. And it's on his permanent record.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about the co-conspirator, because he's kind of known to be the architect of the $26 million pipeline. Because think about it. While Leonardo, the guy in Florida, was only linked to $5.5 million, the other guy, Oscar, admitted to facilitating the movement of over $26 million to Colombia. So what he did was he personally opened 63 different accounts and issued over 600 debit cards. And I know what you're thinking. Why not just start with him? I don't know. Don't know. Oh,
I'm guessing the $6,000 kid, gave up the information pretty quickly, and that's how they got the other people. A little more concrete evidence.
Yeah.
So here's what ended up happening with him, the co-conspirator, and how he got caught. In June of 2023, TD Bank's actual fraud department, the one that was supposed to catch stuff, they finally blocked one of his suspicious accounts. And he didn't panic. Here's what he did. He texted his co-conspirator and he says, this is what he said: the bank saw the activity as money laundering. He literally said the word money laundering to the criminals. He didn't say there's a glitch in the system. He didn't say we have a problem. He identified the crime for them, and then he kept right on doing it anyway. So when he was talking to the people he was doing business with, he said the bank flagged it as money laundering. Um, hmm. Now, here's the other thing. He didn't just send cards down to Columbia, the second guy. He actually used the cards for himself at his own branch, the one he worked for. He used the.
So now they got him on ATM footage for that too. Whereas if you went to sometimes criminals will go to a different bank, not the bank they're doing the crime through, withdraw money there because it's a little harder to get footage from another bank for the bank's investigation.
Yep. Here's another thing that he did. He took a card linked to the shell company and pulled out $1,000. He then went to a shipping center to send a package to Columbia, and instead of using a fake name, he provided his real home address and personal phone number on the shipping label.
Bless his heart.
Okay. So now he also pleaded guilty. And so the Florida guy, his sentencing is June 11th of this year. And the New Jersey guy, his sentencing is May 27th of this year.
Come back around and see what they
Can you imagine using a stolen ATM that you helped set up at the bank that you work for and using the actual card at the ATM at the bank that you work for? So you set up the account at your bank, you use the ATM card at your bank.
A member of Mensa, he is not.
You know, I like the way you said that. I was about to say that's a special kind of stupid, but you said it a whole lot better than I did.
So I was curious where they're at in Florida, and they're down in Homestead, Florida, which is just south of Miami. You can't tell me Fort Lauderdale, they had one branch and that's it. There's no, yeah. Get off your lazy butt. Drive to a different branch.
Well, here's the other thing too. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to say the obvious thing. Columbia, Miami, and New Jersey, they are known to be hubs for illegal drug activity. As a matter of fact, people would take Interstate 95 from Miami all the way up through New Jersey to get drugs into New York. So you pick the three locations that are known for drug activity to actually perpetrate this fraud. Like you could have gone to a bank somewhere out in Kansas and maybe it would have lasted longer than 6 months, right?
I don't know. They might not have much going on in Kansas.
So here's the thing. Okay. In all seriousness, New Jersey is part of the New York, New Jersey high intensity drug traffic area, the HDTA. So this is a special federal designation that gives the region extra resources. So they have more FBI agents, more DEA agents, and things like that. So, yeah.
But again, if you just have preventative controls in place, most of this wouldn't have happened to begin with. You don't even need all those agents.
Yeah, true.
Dumbfounding.
Very true. All right. That's all I got for this week. Did you guys find anything else that we should talk about with this one? This is weird, man.
Forrest Gump, stupid is as stupid does.
Yeah.
This is definitely another one of those where you know that all of the officials involved with trying to write up the paperwork on this were like, thank you for the emails, thank you for the text messages, thank you for the using it. You made their job so much easier. Instead of them having to go, well, maybe they went to this branch, we got to get that video. Nope, it's all just in one spot.
You can't make this stuff up. You literally cannot make this stuff up.
Nope.
Well, all right, guys. Thank you for joining us this week on the Friday Froster. And thank you, Bob, for sending me the story. Yep. And Bob, I think Bob sent me another one that was pretty good too. I got to look at my emails. If you have a story that you want to hear us talk about, go ahead and send it to me. I'll take a look at it. And maybe one day before the year ends out.
Which anyway. The way this year's going, but before the year ends out, feels is going to be like next week. It's just flying.
Right. Yeah, I can't believe it's February already. That is insane.
Yep.
We got Super Bowl this weekend. Go Hawks.
Well, I was going to ask you, who were you going for in the Super Bowl? Because it wasn't obvious at all. So I was kind of curious, like who.
My husband will be there.
Oh, he's going to the game.
Him and his brother going to the game.
Nice.
Yep. His dad got drawn in a season ticket lottery for some super low price tickets, and they are going.
Nice.
That's fantastic. I love that. Well, if anybody is watching and they're in the San Antonio area, I will be representing Rob and I for 21st Century Audit at the iHeart Audit Conference on Tuesday. So stop by, say hello. Rob's too lazy. He's not going to make the drive over there, but it's all good. I'll be there.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah.
Well, I have the pleasure of wrapping up some SOX testing. So
yes, you do, and I appreciate that because I don't want to do
it. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next week.